Reversing gun laws in the state, Governor Ron Desantis wants to repeal Florida's red flag law.
It allows courts to seize guns from people who pose a threat to themselves or others. This law was a direct result of the Parkland school shooting.
Now, at the start of the legislative session, the governor said the law violates due process because a person has to prove to the court they're not a threat. DeSantis says the burden should always be on the government.
Governor DeSantis wants the Florida legislature to reverse gun laws that were put in place in 2018 due to the Parkland shooting. Welcome to another installment of the Connecticut Gun Bench. Today's video is brought to you by P.A.N. Firearms, LLC. P.A.N. Firearms, your NRA certification on multifaceted gun training. You can reach us at 203-300-6343 or use our website at www.panfirearmsllc.com. As always, there'll be a link in the description box below. If you like channel, like content, what I do, you can support me. The link, everything is appreciated. And remember that my online store is open. You can go check that out. Another great way to support the channel and get some cool merchandise at the same time. Also, I've been getting notices and notifications, emails, and phone calls that people who have been subscribed to my channel for years are not getting their notifications. I can only tell you to be proactive and check and make sure that notification bell is checked, and even go further, make sure that you're still subscribed if you are subscribed. I always suspected that something was going on, but just go ahead and do that and I'll keep it current. But let's talk about this now. As part of the 2025 Florida legislative year, Governor DeSantis is pushing to reverse gun laws that were put in place by then Governor Rick Scott in 2018 in response to the Parkland shooting. Gun laws that in reality would not have prevented that shooting. But one of his big ones is to reverse the red flag laws that were then put in place. He also is looking to reverse the ban on long guns to persons under the age of 21. Let me go ahead and give you some information.
On his wish list launched at the State of the State, the governor telegraphed reversing Florida gun law.
Look back in instances where legislation may have been passed in recent years.
And he named specific examples, lowering back to 18 the age to buy a long gun, redoing red flag laws that courts have used 15,000 times to temporarily take weapons from people who pose immediate danger. Both were part of the landmark and unprecedented Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Public Safety Act, passed with the families in March 2018, weeks after the school massacre, by a deeply conservative legislature and then Governor Rick Scott.
Lawmakers in the next 59 days will be considering a roster of gun bills having to do with sales and the storage, and also where guns will be permitted to be carried in this state.
Heard that and you saw that. Now, I have been very vocal against red flag laws. Now, they try to play them down as saying, well, if somebody's a threat to themselves or someone else, the police can come in and temporarily remove their firearms. Problem is, some of these red flag laws allow outside parties. So it goes from family members, doctors. It just kind of broadly lets anyone walk up to a judge and say, this person's a threat to themselves. Judge signs off on it, and this person's guns are taken from them without their notice, because they get no notification until the police come and take the guns. Then they have to go through a legal process in order to prove that they're not a threat. That is egregious. And it's also a violation of the Fourth Amendment due process, period. So that's why I have a problem with it. Now, if the person is a threat, then there is a process to do so. And pretty much every state has this. But just arbitrarily having somebody walk up to a judge, you have a beef with your neighbor. That neighbor goes to a judge and says that person's unstable and you should go check him out. And the police go in and just pretty much take the person's property from them without due process. I have a real problem with that. I'm going to come in here briefly just to breeze over what the governor is trying to do. But Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, Republicans signaled he wants to repeal the red flag law in the Sunshine State, arguing that it infringes on gun owners' Second Amendment rights. It also infringes on Fourth Amendment rights. The governor made his intentions known during Tuesday's State of the State address. The state's red flag laws were signed by then Governor Rick Scott, who is now a senator, in the aftermath of February 8, 2018 mass shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, where 17 people were killed. Their version of the red flag laws allows law enforcement to go to a judge and ask them for permission to remove or confiscate a person's firearms until that person proves otherwise, which is really kind of reversing the whole thing. And they're saying that you're guilty until you prove yourself innocent. But the other thing that also came out of that law was the fact that the minimum age for purchasing guns went from 18 to 21. And the governor is looking to reverse both of those. Now, of course, the family members of those who died at Parkland have their own views on this.
We worked a lot. The legislators, both sides of the aisle, they compromised and they settled on things that they could live with.
Debbie Hickson's election to Broward School Board is part of the legacy to losing her husband Chris that day at Douglas High.
It's very difficult to hear this.
Alyssa's mom and Gina's dad, who founded Stand With Parkland and texted from Tallahassee, the state got it right. Those pragmatic laws have helped to keep students and teachers safe throughout our state. Elena's dad, Ryan Petty, has a different view.
I've had a change of heart, if you will, as I've learned more.
Petty is on the MSD Public Safety Commission, questions red flag law's civil rights process, and focuses now on other best practices.
I think we have a better handle on what's going on, particularly in the realm of protecting Florida schools.
Now, here's the problem. As I said prior, even if these red flag laws were in place before this shooting, they wouldn't have prevented it. And why is that? There are many warning signs that this shooter was on a path to doing this. Now, you have to remember, September of 2017, Cruz posted on the internet that he was going to be, quote, a professional school shooter. Somebody notified the FBI and said, you should look at this guy. That was ignored. January 2018, 1 month before this happened, the FBI admitted agents received a tip in January from someone who was close to the shooter, giving information on his gun ownership, desire to kill people, erratic behavior, and disturbing social media posts, as well as the potential of him conducting a school shooting. That was ignored. Also, on top of all that, the police knew who he was because they had been to his home 39 times for different reasons. All of that was ignored. Even with red flag laws in place, if they followed the same behavior that they followed prior to those laws being signed, this would have still went down. And let's go right to the nitty gritty. On the day of the shooting, the armed resource officer refused to enter school. So there's a good chance that he will get this through, as Florida is, well, technically it's a red state at this point in time because of the past election where Desantis pretty much just ran rampant across the electorate and won in just a massive landslide. But also, another state is jumping into the fray in a very different way. The state of Alabama is now trying to pass a law where you cannot enforce red flag laws in their state. They're literally cutting off the head of the snake. So if they can't pass any red flag laws and you can't enforce them anyway. Let me come into here. What are red flag laws? Alabama bill will prohibit temporary gun seizures. An Alabama lawmakers filed a bill, HB 409, preventing the enforcement of red flag laws in the state, titled the Anti-Red Flag Gun Seizure Act. The legislation prohibits any state agency, state or local law enforcement agency, or political subdivision from enforcing or being paid to enforce any red flag law in Alabama. Now, they go even further, claiming that if law enforcement or municipality enforces red flag laws, they could be subject to a $50,000 civil penalty. Alabama's not playing in this regard. But the bill also provides a judicial relief process for individuals who were injured after a red flag law was enforced against them, which means they can sue the local municipality for doing it. The proposed law clarifies they will not prevent law enforcement from seizing guns as evidence in an investigation or upon a criminal conviction, which is common sense. Yarbrough, the author of this bill, previously attempted to pass the same legislation in 2023, but the bill failed to pass. Quote, tyrants understand it's impossible to enslave a people whose minds are free and whose means of defense are the best available, Yarbrough said. Yarbrough also touts that when he was endorsed by the National Association of Gun Rights, which we know that it's a national gun group, and come out of that. So Alabama is literally getting ahead of the game by saying, we're going to have a law that says you can't have red flag laws in our state, which is a very, very aggressive move. But as I pointed out before, I have always had a problem with red flag laws, especially how some of these states have authored these bills when it comes to this situation. Because like I said, anyone can make an accusation against another person, and that person can go before a judge, and the judge can just sign off on it. And the victim of this red flag law doesn't know it's in effect until the police come to their house and take all their property. Then they got to wait to go through a legal process to get their property back. I have a huge problem with that. It is a violation of due process. But Florida and Alabama seem to be heading in the right direction with this. I'm not saying that you shouldn't remove firearms from dangerous people, but when you open a door like that where you can just basically have anyone make an accusation against any other person, that's a real problem. But let me know what you think. As always, you can leave your comments in the comment section below. And as always, any statements of violence or statements that lead to violence will be removed. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you're notified the next time the video goes live. I am going to see you on the next one. Peace.